this video, I'm gonna share with you how I got into remission from my ulcerative colitis. My name is Jamel. I'm an endoscopy nurse currently travel nursing in the States in endoscopy. And funnily enough, I work in the exact department that treats my disease. And so I consider myself lucky in that way. I also want to preface this in saying this is not medical advice. This is just how I have learned to manage my disease and eventually get into remission without any symptoms for the last almost year. Again, this is not medical advice. Talk to your gastroenterologist or get a referral from your family doctor. So what is ulcerative colitis? Basically, it's like the lining of your colon and usually it starts at the bottom near the rectum and works its way up. When it gets worse and worse as it progresses, becomes weak, inflamed, and doesn't do the job that it's supposed to do. And that job is to usually take up the water left in your food and actually in your poop, because in the colon it's all kind of just poop anyways, and takes out the last bits of water so that you absorb it, so that you don't get dehydrated and that you can have formed normal stools. When you have ulcerative colitis, you can get things like diarrhea. You have urges that like cannot be stopped and can happen in the blink of an eye, where you have to literally go take a shit or find a washroom ASAP in like the next minute or so, because you might crap yourself, which is super scary. It's a super scary feeling, and a lot of people deal with this, especially nowadays, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and we'll go into that into different videos and things like that as we kind of build on this journey. But this is just my story and how I got into remission. So at its worst, it can be horrible. You're using the bathroom 10 to 20 times a day, you're seeing blood in your stool, you're feeling dehydrated, you're feeling terrible, you feel absolutely zero confidence because you have to be within at its worst, I have to see a washroom and be near a washroom if I'm gonna feel confident anywhere. So this is a real thing, this is serious, and if you have symptoms that are similar to mine that I'm gonna describe in this video, then please go talk to your family doctor and get this shit checked out. I don't care how young you are, because this usually affects, and we usually find people with these symptoms before 30 years old, just like I did, okay? So a little bit of background of my UC symptoms and how that actually started. About 10 years ago was when I kind of first saw my first symptoms, but they were masked by many things, and I'll get into that. So some of the original OG symptoms that I got like 10 years ago were anxiety, just sick to my stomach feeling, and like the feeling that I need to literally take a poo. I experienced this a lot, especially when I was taking tests in university, when I did my first degree in biology. And it actually caused me to fail a couple classes because I just could not manage the anxiety that I was with. At the time, I saw this as just anxiety, and so my doctors and I put myself on anxiety medication, which I hated, didn't work, didn't do anything, and so I thought I'd have to manage it myself. Of course, people have anxiety attacks all the time, and just because you have anxiety or just because you feel like you need to throw up or take a shit does not mean you have ulcerative colitis. This is a common thing. Anxiety attacks are like that, and that's totally normal and can be treated through many ways. Just to preface this, I was a heavy smoker. From 18 to 23, I smoked probably about a pack a day, and that was all in uni for my undergrad degree. It's not something I'm proud of, but it's something that actually helped my ulcerative colitis. Ulcerative colitis and nicotine go hand in hand, are deeply intertwined, which is a really weird thing, and we can go into the mechanism later, but smoking seems to soothe and treat ulcerative colitis, which is just like mind-boggling. I'm not telling you to go smoke, I'm not telling you to start taking nicotine patches or anything like that, but it is something that might have masked me getting worse symptoms earlier, and instead I got them a little bit later in life. I'm 31 now, and over the last couple of years is when I had the worst of my symptoms happen and my worst flare-ups. Again, I'm not telling you to start smoking. I actually quit at 23 for a couple years before I even touched another cigarette. I'm not gonna lie, I've had a cigarette here and there, and that's not the point of this video. It's not my smoking journey, it's how I got into remission for my ulcerative colitis. So at 23, no major symptoms were happening. I wasn't having diarrhea, I didn't see any blood in my stool, I didn't see any of this kind of stuff. It wasn't until I was 26 and I was in nursing school, and it was after my friend's party. I woke up in the morning feeling absolutely terrible because I definitely drank way too much. And I can see where you're thinking, like, this guy, he just smokes and he drinks, and this is the regular university experience, and I'm a normal person, this is how I did it, and this is where I noticed it. So that morning, I woke up, felt sick, I was like, all right, I probably need to poo, take a poo. And that's what happened. I literally looked in the toilet and I'm like, holy shit, there's actually blood in there. And I'm like, what did I even eat last night? Was it tomatoes? Was it something red? Did I have some Gatorade? Did I have Jello shots? What was it? Why is it red? And so I got a little bit freaked the fuck out. So I immediately went to go talk to my family doctor. And so that's what I did. I went to a family doctor, a walk-in clinic at the city of the university that I lived in. And I was like, yo, this is what happened. I should probably tell you. And they're like, yeah, we're gonna refer you to get a colonoscopy. And weirdly enough, this wasn't my first colonoscopy. I got my first colonoscopy when I was 19 years old. Not because I had any bowel issues or anything like that, but I was anemic. So meaning, you know, I had low iron, I had symptoms of like just being drained and low energy in life. And upon that first examination of that colonoscopy, I actually didn't see anything. They didn't see anything that is indicative of colitis or of any other, you know, scarier diagnoses. So after I started nursing school and after I saw the blood in the stool, in Canada at least, it's not that easy as a young guy to get a colonoscopy. And because I work in this, I say young people all the time, but oftentimes they don't get these things as soon as somebody who either gets a lot of blood in their stool and they're like above 40 years old, or they have a family history. But when you're a young, healthy young person and you are experiencing these kind of symptoms, and especially when it was like more of a one-off for me at that time, like it'd be once in a while I would see blood in my stool, it wasn't that big of a deal. So I was on the wait list for over a year. And in that year, I actually graduated and I finished nursing school. And the first job that I got, the first job that I wanted to, because as a nurse, you're gonna find jobs, that's no problem. But the job that I chose was not specifically because, you know, the symptoms that I was getting, but because I thought it was the most interesting. And we'll go into nursing and why I think endoscopy nursing is amazing. And so I got into endoscopy nursing, and as I got more comfortable around the doctors I was with, I actually asked them and told them about my symptoms. And instead of just like waiting on the wait list forever, I was lucky enough to get one done at work or on a day off when I had work. So it's really annoying, but I'm really lucky that I got the job where I needed to be treated, because not everyone gets lucky like that. And like I said, when you're a young, healthy person, you get overlooked a lot and people don't take your symptoms seriously. And that's a scary thing, especially as we're seeing it happen more commonly in young people all the time. And that's obviously kind of fucked up that we're not treating this or taking people seriously, especially nowadays. And you know, we take mental health and things like this so seriously now, but we often neglect that. And there's a lot of like compassion fatigue that you'll see in healthcare workers and stuff like that. And so I get it. It's not right. It's not appropriate. It's not even acceptable. But I see when this happens. I see the flaws, the many flaws of the medical system. So I got that colonoscopy. I did the prep. I did all the stuff that people are scared of and things like that. And I got a colonoscopy. I did it with some sedation. And I don't remember a single thing from it other than the pictures that my doctor gave me after, where he was saying, you have something called proctitis. And proctitis is the inflammation in your colon at the rectum. So basically from the rectum, basically just inside the hole, to about 10 centimeters in, there was inflammation. And so I saw some like red spots and stuff like that, but it wasn't super gnarly. I was just like, oh, that looks bad, obviously. You shouldn't be bleeding from the inside, but it was something that concerned me. And so I asked, what do we do? And the first things that you do are you start taking different kinds of medications. Some medications you just swallow, and of course, there's also medications that you do as a suppository. And a suppository is basically just a pill that you stick in your own rectum. And it's not glamorous, it's not that, but it's the human body and it's you being sick, and you have to just do what you got to do in order to get better. And so that's what I did. I tried suppositories, I tried pills, I even tried some fancy steroid enemas, and all those things did not work, which was super frustrating. At the same time, I was also training for triathlons. So like I was like not experiencing super sick stuff, but I was like, oh, okay, I have proctitis, it's kind of bad, but I'm taking medication and I should slowly get better. And so I was training hard for triathlons, specifically the half Ironman distance. And if you are a runner or if you're just like a longer endurance athlete, you'll know that your tummy will bubble when you go on for too long, when you eat the wrong thing, things like that. That is a normal symptom of it. But because I already knew I had proctitis, the endurance aspect of it kind of amplified that. So it wasn't the best thing for me at the time. And so I didn't stop training. I actually continued to do a triathlon. And in 2024, I did a half Ironman in Calgary. And it was the time of my life. My family was there, my friends were there. I had one of my best friends participating with me in that race. And I did amazing. The swim was so fun, the bike was great. And on the run, about 10K into the 21K that I had to do, I started getting bubbly guts. And that's what I'm just gonna call it the entire time, is bubbly guts. A bubble gut is how I felt. And so within the last 11 kilometers of that race, I probably used the washroom 5 to 10 times because I was just feeling so terrible. My nutrition was on point because I did it all in training. I did everything I did, but this was the start of a really nasty flare-up that was gonna happen. At the end of the day, after the end of the race, I honestly didn't even think about it because I was so just elated with the, finishing this huge goal of mine and my family surrounding me and my friends being there. So I didn't really care. But as I stopped training, and if you do train for the stuff, there's a little bit of a depression phase when you finish or achieve the goal that you wanted to do. And as you kind of go down, you start to feel a little bit low because you're not training for anything, and it's a totally normal thing. And in that point, that's when my body was like, oh, okay, now it's time to just like feel like absolute shit. And so I felt like shit. I felt like shit because, you know, I didn't have a goal, but I also started to feel like shit because this flare up, this last 10 kilometers of my race became my everyday experience. My bowel habits started to change. I started using the washroom at first like 5 times a day, and then it became 5 to 10, and then it became like anywhere from like 8 to 15 times a day, where it would be diarrhea, it would be blood, it would be, and like I knew this because I knew I had proctitis. I knew that this was my disease getting worse, and this was super fucking shitty. It was super scary, and at first I wasn't like super stoked to admit it, but I was happy to talk with my doctors, and they're all my coworkers and my friends, and so I was like, yo, we gotta check this out again, because the medication that I'm doing is not working, and I shouldn't be feeling this bad all the time. I went on vacation to Japan, Hong Kong, Hawaii, and I experienced all these symptoms at the same time, so that did not help. All of those are amazing experiences, but I was not in a healthy state. And when you're pooping 10, 20 times a day, it's really scary, and a lot of the times you might not even be near a washroom. So I was like, I'd be literally just be walking out and about, and you would get the urge. And I've had some wild dookies out in the wild, and it was scary. And now I can look back at it and think it was kind of funny, but people experience this every single day, and it's really shitty when you're in it. Pun intended, no pun intended, doesn't matter. You feel absolutely horrible. Your confidence just like tanks. You start to like close off from other people and wanting to do stuff and being invited to things because you're like, I can't even handle myself. If I'm not looking at a washroom, then I cannot be anywhere. So we did the colonoscopy again, and I was sad to say that, and I did it without sedation. I did it without sedation because I wanted to see what was going on and if, you know, anything was getting better. So I did it unsedated, super uncomfortable, obviously, but it's not the hardest thing to do. People can do it all the time. People do it all the time. And I did it because I was comfortable with it, because I've seen it happen literally thousands of times at work, so I wasn't too worried about it. So I did it, I watched it, and I saw in just like horror, I saw, you know, my proctitis, that's what started as proctitis, get worse and become ulcerative colitis. So inside my colon and past kind of the rectum area and in it, that area, it became just terrifying. It was like mucus, blood, ulcers, deep ulcers. It was super fucked up. And so I'm chatting to the doctor as the procedure's going on. I'm like, that looks bad. He's like, it looks pretty bad. And I'm like, shit, man. And so we didn't even do the full colonoscopy, because the way ulcerative colitis works is that it works its way up. And so we worked our way through my bowel until it became normal mucosa again, so normal tissue again. And it wasn't that far up. It was probably just at the, like before the transverse. So that's this part of your colon here. And so you go up this way, and that's like your rectum to sigmoid. And so that's where we saw it, and that's where it looked really bad. And so I was like, damn, like we got to do something about it. And he's like, yeah, for sure, we got to do something about it. So I jumped on a bunch of new medications. I jumped on some powerful shit, and sadly, this powerful shit didn't even work. Luckily for ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, we are getting new treatments and stuff every single day. So I wasn't feeling too discouraged. I know some people have to get infusions for this kind of stuff, like legit get a needle poked in and sit for like an infusion for however long so that they can get treated for this every 8 weeks, every 6 weeks, whatever it takes, depending on how bad the disease is. And I was scared of that, but because I worked there, I had some options and had the ability to know kind of what was going on further. Like, could we do some medications that weren't as, you know, scary, not scary, I'm not scared of an infusion, but can we do other things? And so there's different kind of pills. So I got put onto Velsipity. That was one medication. And I was on that for 6 months. And I was like, this is for sure gonna be the one. I don't have to worry about this shit anymore. So I went on Velsipity. For 6 months, I didn't get any better. And it was pretty shitty. I was like, okay, all right, that's another one done. I can't do that, and it's not working for me. What do I do next? So I started, like, in this whole process, I was like, all right, there has to be something that I can do physically, mentally, whatever, to get better. It didn't mean cure, it didn't mean like completely treat or go into remission, but I had to do something to get me better. And at this time, after the triathlon, I actually ballooned up to like 213 pounds. I was eating unhealthily, even though I was trying different diets and stuff like that to help me manage how my disease was being treated, just on my own. And I knew, because of my background with anxiety and my background with all these symptoms, is that when I get these feelings and I have these urges, is that it's really tied to my anxiety. And because of the, you know, gut-brain connection, there's a lot to that. And there's a lot that needs to be studied. And I'm not telling you that this is like the cure for anything, but I told myself I have to start meditating. I have to start practicing breathing exercises for when I get stressed, when I get anxious, when I feel the urge to have to go run to find a bathroom, that I need to have some things in place, some safety nets, okay? So I did. I practiced some breathing techniques, And when I was getting those anxious feelings, I would breathe my way out of it. I would breathe my way out of it 8 out of 10 times, but the muscle wasn't strong enough. And by muscle, I mean the meditation muscle wasn't strong enough for me to completely be like, oh, I can just breathe my way out of every single one and I can hold it in and I can have normal poops. I can have like no blood in my stool, nothing like that. But like out of scary situations, I could almost get myself out 8 out of 10 times, which was great, which was a huge thing. But also I know, because I'm fascinated by health and endurance training and things like that, is that my weight and me being overweight was not ideal. It wasn't gonna help me get better. And so I said, all right, I gotta lose weight. I gotta cut down. And so over the next 6 months, I got to the leanest that I ever got, and my symptoms were getting better. And I was starting to feel better. And so when I started feeling better, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do another triathlon. So I started signing up for a triathlon, and about a month into training for another, long half distance triathlon, it got completely derailed. I literally, one morning, my ankle just like blew up, and not like blew up, like the bone just like splattered everywhere, but like it just like ballooned into like this big fat foot ankle thing. I was like, shit, do I have gout? Do I have something else? And on top of that, not being able to walk for like 3 or 4 days, which was scary enough, I was getting the worst pain in my right hip. And I was so stiff and I was so swollen and I could tell that I was inflamed. And so I took a step back. I was like, all right, I'm not gonna do triathlon until I can figure this shit out. And so I got leaner, I got healthier, and I eventually just focused on that. I focused on the foods that I was eating. I was focused on, I did a bunch of different diets at the time, and that seemed to be going well for me. That seemed to be something that I could see, depending on what I ate, how badly I would get the symptoms. I wasn't fully cured. My meditation was on point. I was practicing my breathing exercises, but still, there would be times where I'd literally shit myself, just at random points. And I hid it really well. Nobody ever caught me, but I talk about it with some friends because, part of anxiety and stuff like that is like feeling kind of trapped or feeling like you can't do anything about it. And so, I have really close friends that are supportive, and they're like, damn, that's, it's obviously really terrifying to feel. And it's like, yeah, it is. And that made me feel a little bit better. But that wasn't enough. That's not the thing that, ultimately got me to where I am today. So I'm the leanest I've ever been. I'm like mentally super clear. But summer was coming up. I was still feeling terrible, and none of the medications that were working. And if you're anybody, summer is usually the best time of the year. People are most excited. They're most outside. They're at the beach. They're like doing all these things and having fun and like socializing. And I couldn't do that because I was too scared to be too far away from a toilet for an entire summer. And I felt bad for myself, I was like, oh man, damn, is this my life now? Is this what it's gonna be like? I can be lean, I can be healthy, I can be meditating, I can be journaling, I can be doing whatever, things that I can do, but there's something still going on that's wrong in my body. There's still inflammation. There's still some reason for this. There's still some stress. And so maybe I stressed my own self out with, my own unreasonable expectations of life, but also I just wasn't getting better. And so I started to talk to another doctor who I work with, who came in from another province, or not another province, but another hospital, and was a specialist in this. And we talked, and he's like, dude, I think you should try this thing. Talk to your other doctor and see if maybe we can collab, do this. And I'm like, okay, great. So he recommends that I took RINVOQ. And RINVOQ is, at last, the medication that made me feel and get to the place that I needed to go. And that was me, after trying probably more than 7 medications, getting to it. I never got to infusions, and because my doctors wanted to keep me off it. I'm not really sure why. I didn't really look at the symptoms or the side effects of any of that stuff, and so I was just like, I'm down to try all these pill things. I'm down to try this more experimental stuff. And at the time, RINVOQ was only for people with rheumatoid arthritis, but we knew that it worked for people with ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, but also tied in with ulcerative colitis is like this thing called, I think it's called axial arthritis. I'll have to look it up again. But it's basically where your trunk, your hips get inflamed. And so that's why I was feeling that hip pain. I was swollen, I was inflamed. And I was like so stoked at the idea that my doctor just was like, oh yeah, it also treats this. And I'm like, dude, that is on top of me having to shit 5 to 10 times a day, or 10 to 15 times a day, was that sitting up from the toilet felt terrible, right? I was so stiff, and I'm like, oh my God, how do I even operate like this? I'm 29 years old. I should not be feeling this shitty, this old. And so when he told me that, I'm like, dude, let's try it. Let's give it a go. And on the first day, I felt way better. I pooped maybe twice that day. And that might sound, like nothing impressive or anything But to me, that was a huge thing. I was seeing like normal stool for twice in one day, when before that I was having diarrhea 5 to 15 times a day. And that's just, and I was feeling like the man. Sadly, this didn't just like completely block it day one and I was just finished and like I got into complete remission. It's like, no, this took a little bit of time. It took an extra 3 months. So for one summer, I was still nervous. I was still anxious, and I spent all of it either going to the gym because I was focusing on getting lean, getting healthy, eating good food, and going to work to help others, hopefully treat their diseases and treat other GI diseases that we'll discuss on this channel. But also, I would do that, and after I'd finish work, I'd go poop before I get to work, before I go home, because, you know, in the 15 minutes that takes me to bike home, I was like, at least I could probably hold it if I do it right before I go to work, before I get home. So 15 minutes, because at sometimes the frequency can happen so crazily where it's like right after you poop, you have to poop again. It's crazy. I don't know how to explain it. You feel like you're done and then you're not. You stand up and you're like, oh, I gotta go back again. It's crazy. This feeling is so terrible and awful, and I feel so fucking bad for everybody that has to deal with it. And I'm so lucky that I have reached remission because of this stuff. But I don't think the medication alone would have done this for me. It was a combination of me like lowering my stress, taking care of myself, and eating the right foods, which people think it's a diet thing will cure the whole thing. And for some people it does work, but I'm not totally sure that just your diet will completely fix this or treat this or get you into remission. Like I said, again, this is just my experience with it. Talk to your doctor, do the things that you can on your end, and then add the medication that will hopefully get you into remission, to the place that you want to be, where you feel confident, where you feel like you can go outside, where you can feel like you can socialize, where you feel like yourself again. So like I said, for that summer, like I'd go home and then I would literally sit on the couch and I would read books and I would sleep. I wasn't sleeping because I was low energy or because I was depressed. I was just sleeping because I thought that was the best way to recover. And so I was sleeping good. I worked on my sleeping habits. I worked on my body habits, getting lean, meditating, and I just read books. And I just read books for an entire summer. So I lived across the street from the beach, and I still do live across the street from the beach, and I didn't go once for the entire summer. And I felt like an absolute bummer for all my friends, but it was something that I felt like I had to do. And was it depressing? Yeah. But it got me to the place where I'm at now, so I'm not too worried about it. And I want to remind you that there are options. There are things that you can do to get better. This is not how your life has to play out. You don't have to be doing this. You don't have to have these IBD symptoms all the time. You can reach remission. It might be hard. It might take you 10 to 15 medications to learn it. And taking care of yourself and eating it and making sure that you're eating well and not eating toxic shit that's going to make your colon hate you, right? And so it's a whole combination of these things, but this is what worked for me. So between all this stuff, me, you know, and every part of this journey was not like, oh, every part of it was trial and error. It was like, I was trying different diets. What was helping me? There were some diets that were helping me, like animal-based felt really good. If I went like vegetarian, it felt really good. If I was eating more fiber, it felt terrible, which is kind of fucked because people are like, oh, if you just eat more fiber, you'll feel better. This is not the same for ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease or IBD or IBS symptoms. This is not the same. And so you have to find what kind of works for you, what works better, what foods trigger you. And we'll go into a whole diet episode later. But getting leaner and losing body fat makes your body more able to recover, because instead of like working overtime to get, you know, your fat cells to cooperate with the rest of your body and become inflamed and more, like when you're fatter, and not to fat shame anybody, when you're fatter, you become more prone to have like higher cortisol and be inflamed and feel terrible and just not recover the way that you should. And so getting lean helped me heal. Meditating, staying at home, focusing on my, you know, anxiety in itself helped me heal. All of these things had to work together, plus the medication, to get me into remission. Now, I'm one of these people that like does not want to be on medication. And if I didn't have to, or if I don't need to be, I won't be. But, and maybe later on I'll wean myself off, but at this moment in time, I feel the happiest I've been, the most confident that I've been. And that's because I'm not experiencing these really fucked up symptoms that a lot of people have to deal with. And like I said, it took over a year to figure out this, to get to where I wanted to be. And now I've been in a year in remission. And I wish I said this story earlier, because maybe I would have helped somebody else a year ago to make them feel, you know, like they're not alone. Like these symptoms are like the rest of your life, because they're not. So don't be scared. Go talk to your doctor. Tell them all these fucked up stuff that you have. You got blood in your stool, you got diarrhea. doesn't matter. And I'll make another video on like how to best address that, how to handle your first colonoscopy, how to talk to somebody for help and to get the treatment that you need. So if you're struggling with ulcerative colitis, or you are also in remission and you have some tips for other people, please leave a comment and let me know if you want to hear more about this, because this is my area of expertise and also something that I have a lived experience with. And I love to help people take care of this stuff, because like anything, once your health is an issue, it becomes the only problem that has like in your entire life. I didn't care about money. I didn't care about working extra hard. I didn't care about YouTube. I didn't care about my triathlon. It just became, how do I stop shitting myself 10 to 20 times a day? I know, and that's how it was. And so leave a comment, subscribe, and let me know if this is like content that you want to see, or if this will help you, because I got plenty of knowledge and info, and I also get to talk to the best doctors in the world about this kind of stuff. And so maybe interviews down the line and things like that could be on the radar if we can, if there's interest. And even if there isn't interest, this is something that I need to talk about because I'm passionate about it, because it affects me and I know it affects other people, and people are just suffering in silence, and that really sucks. So if you like this video, like I said, like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you want to see. Let me know how you're feeling. And remember, you're not alone. And to always rep the set. I'll see you in the next one.